It's open water, international law. So throw me your bow line, step aboard, and let's have a talk.
Welcome to Open Water with your host, Brian Davis.
Alright, hello, and welcome to American Boathead Interviews, episode 1, first one with an interviewee. And actually, it's not so much as an interviewee as a podcast partner type of scenario. I got my younger brother Dallin here with me, and we're just gonna shoot the breeze about boat stuff for a little bit and maybe kind of work out some kinks for when I do interview somebody important. So, Dallin Davis, how are you doing?
Great, glad to be on. Proud I get to be one of the first guests on American Boathead.
Yeah. Also, you live right down by the lake here, beautiful Coeur d'Alene Lake, featured in many of my videos. And I gotta ask you, do you feel it beckoning to you?
Even now, where we hit these subarctic temperatures. All right, guys.
Yeah.
Full disclaimer: it's pretty nice out right now, especially for the time of the year. But
snow has melted pretty much.
the water's cold, but I still have that urge to get out there. I'm sure we'll probably get into this a little bit more, but one of our favorite things to do is to do things while boating, and one of our newest kind of hobbies has been subwinging, which has really kind of opened up new ways to enjoy boating, and that's definitely been calling to me. But yeah, just really can't complain. Any day out on the lake is a day that was good to be alive.
Yeah, well spent for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, we kind of had this scenario where he lives right next to the boat dock, maybe 2 blocks away. So I'm able to drop my boat in there and come park the trailer at his house and have the family meet me at the boat, and it's just super convenient. Or we'll just go out before work one day and putt out to the middle of the lake and drop in the old subwing and fly around. It's a pretty great way to start the day.
Yeah, never have to worry about what weather you might see on the lake, because I already know it. I can see it out my window.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'll be surprised.
We did find out there is good days and bad days to do it.
Yeah, definitely.
I would say for sure when it's choppy, it doesn't really matter. It's not fun for the people on the boat, but it makes no difference for the subwinger. But definitely, I'd say the biggest factor was sunlight.
Sunlight, definitely the time of day. It seemed like there would be certain times where if the sun was, between 10 and 2, it came in at enough angle to where your visibility was really good, even as you... With subwinging, when you look down from a boat, it's just this greenish black abyss. Sometimes you may or may not be able to see features depending on where you're at.
Yeah, it's pretty...
Depending on the lighting, but with subwinging, it really opened my eyes, because when you go down 10 feet, you can see 10 feet further down than where you were before, approximately. So
that could be halfway to the bottom or close enough to something.
And just being, all of us, I'm sure if you've ever been on a boat, it probably started or had something to do with fishing. And I think we've all had that kind of urge or that desire to know what it looks like down there. What are the fish seeing? What is that terrain? And
it's terrifying.
And subwinging, though, has really opened that up. And I would say it probably has helped both of us with our fear of the unknown down there.
Definitely. I always felt like a prey whenever I'd fall off a wakeboard or an inner tube and sitting there dangling with my little feet that look like possibly like bait. And then the second you start moving behind a boat, it's like I feel like I turn into a predator and I got to worry in the world, especially knowing that literally there's no fish in that lake bigger than my arm,
Yeah.
Even the biggest pike wouldn't be out there in the first place.
Yeah, we did have a monster record lake trout just pulled out of Coeur d'Alene. That did kind of put it into perspective, not that I swim at the levels that a lake trout does, but
we should look up how big that fish was.
It was pretty huge. I'll pull that up.
That's interesting you said that. I kind of have this theory that for a lot of people, fishing is kind of the secondary to being out on a boat. It's just the reason. I mean, a lot of people get addicted to it. I get that, but I think there's a lot of people that just want to go out and be on their own little island of solitude.
Yeah, I would definitely say, I would say the same thing. I feel like part of the reason people do that is because other than that, they'd just be sitting purely on a boat doing nothing, and so they had to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like it feels a little weird. Like I go out in my mini boats and I pretty much don't have a purpose for them, other than I'm so excited to float in it and be in it and drive around in it. So, it feels like to have a purpose to take your boat out. For one, to justify spending any kind of money on it, you got to imagine that you need some kind of an excuse. But fishing is fun, wakeboarding is fun, all the things you do. Subwinging obviously is fun. So
I would definitely say though, getting out on the boat, being with family and friends,
yeah,
or being alone with your thoughts has definitely been probably a big draw for most people, first and foremost, and then the fishing, the wakeboarding, and all those things are ancillary type activities to make it even more enjoyable or more justifiable for sure.
Yeah, and it's kind of like when you just invite somebody out, you don't really sound too attractive when you offer just going out on a boat, but the second you add in to get smashed with country music playing or to go subwing or go wakeboarding, everybody's in and down. So,
but it does bring us kind of to something we had talked about a few days ago. Was one of our most memorable boating experiences as children, and that when you bring that topic up of the why of boating, why people enjoy it, why. That is a scenario where you kind of got to know our family a little bit, and you got to know the boat that we were in. Right. But it was the definition in some ways of insanity because there was no other reason than to just have an experience for us to be out there. We weren't really dead set on fishing. I mean, us younger guys wanted to fish. We wanted to catch a fish, but for some degree, I'd say our parents really wanted to have us have the experience of being out on a boat because there was no other reason. And you
sense
can
of adventure or something, Well, as I remember it, so we can just talk about the story now. And keep in mind, this is when we were much younger, probably in the early 90s, mid-90s. We were up in Canada, British Columbia, and there's a humongous lake by a hot springs that we were staying at called Arrow Lake. And we had heard later on that it's 1,000 feet deep or more. And I don't know if you remember why we were out there. I think we were going across the lake. My dad had a fishing boat. It was an aluminum Starcraft, 14 feet long, about 4 feet wide, with a 35 horsepower Mercury on it. And 8 people in it,
8 people.
Our whole family.
Pretty much our entire family, I think, was in there. My mom might not have been. I don't remember.
No, she was there. Yeah.
Oh,
and we had another boat following with us, a 16-footer, and we had kids ranging from down to 4 or 5 years old. It was just something I can't imagine I would ever do. But
I'd like to think we all had life vests because I think it was required, but I believe some of them were sitting floats.
I'm sure Dad had a seat float, just a tossable or whatever. So I think the point was that we could drive across the skinny part of the lake, and there was some waterfalls.
Yeah, there was.
And that kind of is what started the whole problem, as I recall, because we had to go back in through some little valley canyon thing, and Dad wound up hitting a rock with his outboard prop.
That's right.
And I think that loosened the outboard a little bit, or kinked it off to the side. So basically what happens, folks, is we see the beautiful waterfalls. It's starting to get overcast and windy. Everybody who's been on the water knows that if there's wind, there's waves. And it started getting pretty hairy pretty quick, and maybe halfway across the lake, we're going at a pretty good clip because we wanted to beat the storm, but we're just bashing down on waves. And
white cap for sure. I mean,
2-3 feet high, probably.
Swells,
And all of a sudden, I don't know if you had a good view of what happened, but I kind of heard a boom, and then I turned back just in time to see my dad's arm sticking straight up in the air, and a fuel line and an outboard motor flying into the air.
Got hit, it got smacked, and as we raised up on that swell, his arm was at full extension. He was off his seat, kind of.
Yeah.
And it was
yeah.
pulling the fuel tank out, and
Yeah.
the motor was still going in my mind. I mean, it was
Yeah,
like,
it was making noise.
yeah, because his hand was only holding onto the throttle at that point. And then we came back on the other end of it, back down, so the back end kind of went back towards the water at that time. As
Well,
our
the
front
motor
end
kind of
came
was
up.
floated, maybe.
Yeah, and then it,
Skipped maybe once.
yeah, and then that was it, pretty much. I mean, I remember we were starting to slow down pretty fast once that came off. So,
yeah.
we could, even though we were going probably wide open, we were only going, I don't know, 10,
Yeah, 8-10 knots.
8-10 knots tops.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe even less than that, to be honest, just because of
Yeah.
the chop.
Yeah, it was pretty gnarly. Well, and
Mind
then
you, we're in the middle of this lake at this point, so
Yeah.
I mean, you can see shore on either side, but
it was an hour away.
yeah, bare minimum. So I mean, if we could have survived the cold,
Oh
we
my
may
god.
have been able to swim float by the next morning. But
Oh my god, yeah. If we would have gone in, that's just like ridiculous. We didn't have cell phones back then, really. We didn't have.
and this lake was, I don't know, 50, 100 miles. I mean, it's a very, very long lake. So if you start
Yeah.
getting pushed north to
Oh my
south
god,
on
yeah. It probably
You-
has tides. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a huge lake.
it was significantly more than what we should have been. And later, come to find out, after talking to people more locally too about what had happened, they were flabbergasted at the fact that not only would we be out there, but we were out there with that crew, which was kids,
Yeah.
and that boat at that time. I mean, it was
Yeah.
everyone was just kind of shocked, really.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, well, and then the other thing is the 16-foot boat that was with us, another family with a bunch of kids, had to tow us. I mean, luckily we had, tie-down ropes or bow lines and stuff. And if you've ever been towed in a boat, it's not very comfortable. You don't have very good control. And especially without a motor / rudder on there, you're just kind of at the mercy of the waves. And if you're trying to go across the waves, then it's just going to get pear-shaped in a hurry. So that added to everybody's uncomfortability and fear.
Yeah, definitely a sense of anxiety. I mean, it just was amazing how fast you can kind of go from, I think in general, all around the world. My other big hobby is snowmobiling. And
Right.
those were both situations and times where I felt like you're put smack back dab in the face of the fact that even though we feel like we've got this world figured out as humans,
Right.
you take away a few of the things that we rely on every day, electricity, communication, whether that's phones or whatever,
Warmth or shelter.
warmth and shelter, and all of a sudden in a source of food and water, and it's like, and I'm not even saying you couldn't find them, I'm just saying you don't know where you would find them. That already starts to amp up that anxiety, that fear, and it's interesting to see decision making and how that can change
Yeah.
during that process too.
Another thing I keep thinking about, excuse me, is like sometimes I'll take a cold shower, or last year I jumped in the lake a few weeks after we had quit subwing. I had already winterized the boat and everything, and I don't know, it was probably September, and it's shocking when the water is even swimmable sometimes, but just on the cold side of it, maybe 40 degrees even, is just shocks your whole system, and my god, is it miserable. Like, I just imagine having you and your kids in a boat, and you hit a wake, and you flip over, and everyone in your family gets woken up like that, thrown and disoriented in the water, face full of water, and oh my god. And then you gotta sit there and think, okay, I'm going in, I'm gonna get blasted with this cold water. Oh, here's this salmon, and now I gotta go save my family, and my fingers are numb already, and whatever. But
Right.
so this is the biggest fish that's ever been pulled out of the lake here, 32.64 pounds.
Yeah, this is actually the Chinook.
Salmon.
Salmon. Yeah, 32.64 pound, measuring just over 3 feet in length and 27 inches around. So
In girth, oh my god.
back to thinking about when we're in there. Now, obviously, if we were out subwing and we saw that would be pretty impressive to see something that's half as long as we are out there. But
Yeah. Oh my god, I'd shit my pants.
it is pretty cool. Back to the subwing thing just a little bit. There's times where now we're kind of getting to know areas where at different times of the day you can actually see the fish out there swimming in schools.
Yeah.
It's really kind of cool to.
It'd be pretty big eye opener for someone that fishes that area.
And not to make this the American subwing show, but that does remind me of a really cool video. If you guys get some time to check it out on YouTube, there's a GoPro authorized video type one that was entered into one of their competitions, and it's a guy, I believe he's up in Finland or Norway, and he goes out in I think it's a wetsuit. I don't even think it's a dry suit. And he goes out in one of their fjords or, somewhere out there, and he is actually captures footage of him subwinging in the vicinity of some killer whales, some orcas, and that was incredible. That is really incredible, because you're basically at that point for something of that size kind of becoming bait. You're trolling behind a boat, like you're a dark bait. You look like a seal kind of,
nice
and
lure.
You can control your depths, but you really can't speed up or slow down unless the boat
communicate with the boat.
Yeah, so that was pretty impressive to see that, and kind of, we get scared, not scared, but there's always first person of the day. It's like drawing short straws. Who's going to be the first one to jump in? And then after you're in, you're down there, you get real comfortable real fast.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine doing that when
there's whales.
There's whales, possibly, whatever type of shark out there. No, they're not all man killers, but
well, yeah, but they what if they just want to play with you and bite your foot off real quick and see what you're made out of? That brings up another point. I'm really considering getting a wetsuit for this, even in the summer when it's nice, just so my energy for keeping my body temperature high is.
See, some of us, and once again, because it's a podcast, you can't see this, but the reason why he's talking about needing that is I personally carry around my wetsuit all year round in the form of insulative blubber.
A dry suit.
It's a dry suit. It never gets wet, but he is like at 6% or less body fat. I'm at like 30% body fat.
It's my cross to bear.
So he gets notoriously cold. Funny thing is, and I'm sure he'll say this for another show, but we were both commercial fishermen up in Alaska. Yeah. And he's probably the last guy you would think that would want to do something like that, just because of the cold temperatures and stuff. But yeah, there is something to be said that you could definitely extend the amount of time. I could see being cold and
or just
get a little foregrip.
Foregrip, and also I noticed my jaw gets tired. I don't know if it's from shivering or if it's trying to be opened by the water, pressure on it. I don't know.
Yeah, that is something.
It's really fascinating how much you learn about water and the dynamics underwater from just being pulled by a subwing. Like, for instance, you feel like, okay, if I put my back feet up like in an airplane, it'll tilt me up, but it doesn't do that. It's the arch of your body or the shape or whatever angle your approach is with the subwing that really changes. And it's kind of interesting because at higher speeds, everything changes too, and it's really coming into play with my boats because I'm finding out that even with stronger motors, I'm not able to get any faster or much faster because of drag and because of the way that water acts against the hull,
And that's something I watched some really cool documentaries, just being educated and stuff, and yeah, it's interesting that subsurface hydrodynamics seems a lot more similar to aerodynamics, a lot of plane experiences, but taking the same median, which is water, but being on the surface of it has a completely different, maybe not completely different, but
it's totally different.
A lot of the rules and laws, yes. Yeah. And I was watching particularly, it was a special on short, skipper type boat racing, like swamp racing, and they talk about the different hull designs that at a certain point, no matter how big of a motor you put on there, one, you're increasing weight, which increases your draw, or how low you set the log, but your draft, but it you could literally just keep upping the horsepower and not go any faster at a certain point, but boom, you change the trim on that motor and you get the front half of the boat out, and now it's just sitting on these back. And these guys are literally going, 100 miles an hour on like a square foot of the back part of their hull. It's a little triangle, and they talk about how that really works, and they're almost flying a little bit.
Yeah, they're just like skipping the back end of their little boat. It's almost like the front of the boat the bow is designed for all your slow speed action, and the back part of the boat is for your at speed or on step, on plane, whatever. So it's much wider and flatter, and in the front it's more angled and sharp, and it kind of lifts the front up as you move through it. It's designed to not only part the waters, but lift you and get you on top of the water.
Yeah, so I mean, just even pulling up, they talk about displacement holes and planing holes. Some of them are merely just trying to push the water out of the way, so you don't have to use much propulsion to do it.
Which would be like a sailboat or a cargo ship. Or,
And then boats with planing holes are just designed to rise up and glide on top of the water when you get enough power on them.
Right.
But any of them can operate like displacement holes when you're at rest or a slow speed. And then as they climb up, they get faster and faster. And then that's where they get into flat bottom, the V bottom, tri-V, different things like that. And that's where you really start getting into the
tri-hole is an interesting one for me because it's kind of a best of both worlds. Besides of how heavy it is, but it's really stable at a standstill, and it's great for fishing or boating or kids and everything. All the four corners of the boat are fairly well supported. And then as you start moving through the water, there's a ton of drag, but it splits into these kind of one main hole and two side holes type of thing until it's out of the water, and then it's on the same plane, for lack of a better word, as the other boats, and you still have all the stability when you slow down.
Right.
Much heavier design, but...
Well, yeah, and it's like you can't, that's where it really does come down to the whole trial and error, because, back to the American Boathead stuff, as you're building your boats, you can look at a design and to your eye, you'd think, oh, that's just going to cut right through the water.
Yeah.
Well, it might at this speed, but then you change the speed up or down, or, where is your top end going to be up?
Yeah.
How's it going to handle in that scenario? And what are the characteristics?
People ask me, like, why don't you put a big motor on one of these boats? I'm just like, I don't want to go that fast because...
You might not be able to even go that fast.
I might not be able to. And what's going to happen when my boat's going that fast? I don't want to plow water at 30 miles an hour. I want to be on top of it.
Right.
And the amount of energy it would take to plow through the water that fast is ridiculous.
Yep.
And it's the same reason I can't really put a jet on it quite yet, because they're that much more inefficient. But
kind of cool thing off that is in this time, could definitely go to another episode on these and alternative types of water transportation, but the hydrofoil and some of that with the multi-hole designs.
I'd love to get into that, and also there's a cushion of air above the water that you can fly through.
Right, the flying low-level flying boat plane.
Yeah,
type
exactly.
Thing. Yeah, that's really. I mean, that kind of really takes that whole hydro aerodynamic and then a whole another type of...
it just mixes it all together.
And it's something that so many people don't ever even come in contact with or don't even know even exists out there. I mean, I'm sure people in England and some places where they used to use those hydrofoil ferries and stuff for boats might have seen them, and then obviously military personnel, but other than that, you just wouldn't be a lot of reason to come across it.
Right, yeah. Well, that sounds like it's all good for the first episode here. I appreciate you coming on and talking to me.
Definitely.
I gotta have you maybe even try a set of my boat plans and see if you can build one, and see if maybe I need to improve them a little bit. I guess that'll have to do for now. We're almost at half an hour, so I'm pretty happy about that.
Definitely keep tuning in. He's going to be going into a lot more stuff about his journey with the mini boats. I know that we've got some more topics to cover with that, and I'm sure he'll be bringing on some of his other guests and stuff like that. But
yeah, and well, hell, now that you mentioned that, I got this 2-seater boat that'll take you and your wetsuit around. I got to get you in it so you can be
big enough for the big boys.
Yeah, a little bigger. And get your opinion on it, and you could do a little SWOT analysis or something. But anyways, for all of us here in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, we'd like to thank you for stopping by and tying up, and we'll throw you a bow line another day, and look for us everywhere. Bye. Peace out.
Thanks, guys.